I think that the fair assessment where your team might be a little bit further ahead at the point of the season than you might have expected. And I'm wondering how that has impacted your decisions and your discussions with other teams.
Yeah, no, it's kind of the question of the moment. I think if, 2-3 weeks ago before we kind of came together, I think we might have had a different conversation, but I think we're cognizant of what the team looks like now, but we're also realize that it could go the other way. So I think there's, a sense of optimism, but also maybe to your original point, like what's the overall timeline for this team and what were the expectations coming in now? And are we ahead of schedule, behind schedule, or are we just kind of right on schedule? I think obviously with the way, players are growing and playing together, I think probably suggests less of a major move. Doesn't mean we don't get those calls and we're not talking about them. But I think the good vibes of the current group, hopefully bodes well for the future.
Thanks. Just, specifically with Goran, I don't think anybody's surprised the situation is where it is today. And I think everybody thought in November it might get to this. Have you stayed in touch with him and Bill and sort of gauge their interest in what his thoughts might be on the rest of the year and how he wants his season to play out?
Sure. Yeah. Just going back to the start, we've always had a pretty good line of communication with Goran and his representative. And even before he left here, Masai and myself sat down with him and got a sense, and we're having those conversations today. So, they're not, revealing a ton, but I think they kind of know the game we're in and the writing on the wall. And I think they'll probably keep those cards close to their vest as far as what's an ideal outcome for them. But they realize as a, fairly large expiring contract that just has, it greases deals in the NBA, which is the name of the game this week.
Great. Thanks very much, Bobby. Good luck tomorrow.
Thanks, Doug. 2 days. Come on.
2 days, whatever. Every day's the same day.
It is.
And next we'll go to Eric Kareen.
Hey, Bobby. Thanks for taking the time. A bit further to Doug's question, going into the deadline, right when your team is not saying this is the ultimate peak, but certainly the peak so far for this season, is there a risk in getting lost in that and in, as you put it, the good vibes, or and how difficult is it to stay cool and rational and calculated given the play that your team has exhibited?
Yeah, I think it goes both ways, right? When we're, not playing well and we're ready to, trade, blow it up, then you go the other way. So I think it goes both ways, which is we're happy. I think in talking to the players, they really believe in themselves, they believe in this team. They're happy with the growth. I think they're getting more comfortable playing with each other. And that's a credit to obviously Nick and that group kind of figuring it out here. But yeah, I think as soon as you zoom back and take kind of the 1, 2, 3 kind of year picture, that hasn't changed for us, right? And it's building a championship team, finding pieces that fit not only in the short term, but obviously long term if we, build a contending team again. So I think that's, the same principles are in play, maybe around the edges as far as what you may do, on Thursday is slightly affected by it, but not much.
And I mean, so much of the conversation we've been having and with Nick often is about just the load specifically on Fred and Pascal, but really on all the starters, but particularly Fred and Pascal, just because how much they're responsible for the creating. Do you see it as a priority, at least to, if not lighten their minutes, to lighten the load somehow? To give this team the best shot?
Yeah, I think you're already seeing that, right? I think it's slowly inching down, but I do think there was that stretch where for the first time in a while we had all those guys healthy, and so we did want to see what they looked like. I also think the way this season has gone with COVID and injuries, in the aggregate there's not a ton of minutes, but I get it on a night-to-night basis, and so the amount of resources and medical staff and recovery and off days and all of that, we're, incredibly mindful, nutrition, recovery, so that they are, fully taken care of and have everything at their disposal. But yeah, I think you're already starting to see that, obviously, with some of the guys getting healthy and guys off the bench playing better. You're seeing some of those minutes come down.
Thanks, Bobby.
And next we have Josh Lewenberg.
Hey, Bobby. Thanks for doing this. Obviously, this is a pretty unique roster construction, as we've talked about since the offseason, just in terms of the interchangeability. When we talked to you at the draft, you said you'd be cool with everybody looking like Pascal or OG or Scotty out there. What have you thought of the way that this experiment, so to speak, has played out so far? And has the lack of a true center been glaring in the way that you've viewed it, or do you feel like you guys have been able to make up for that with some of the other strengths that you have?
Yeah, I don't think anyone was saying that the roster construction when we first did it was set in stone. I think we're always looking at those other options. I think it was important for us to at least see what this type of roster would look like. And so, because of a number of things, we haven't had everybody healthy. And then in addition to not having them healthy, I think we had COVID. We had a little outbreak there. So, they're picking up the schemes really well. They're playing together. They're on a string on both ends. I think people know where to look for guys on offense, where their spots are. But doesn't mean that we, by no means do we think that this is the final look. And I think that's why, this week's important for us. If we can find a player that would complement that group, whether it's positionally or even, continues to look like one of those players.
When you are looking at needs for the team, do you read more into, are you looking more in terms of positional needs, or are you looking more about kind of like skill set and what the team needs regardless of position?
I mean, the easy answer is both, but you do. So do we need another one of those multi-positional wings? Do we need a more traditional big, or do we need another ball handler? Right. And if you could solve all of those with one, you would, but you can. And so is that three? Can you combine two of those into one player? Do you need to go get two players, or are you content to just let this thing grow and maybe one of the guys off the bench or one of the young development players turns into that?
Thanks, Bobby. Good luck this week.
Yeah.
And next we have Michael Grange.
Hey, Bobby. How important is it to take advantage of Goran's contract? It's not often you can improve your team without having to take away somebody who's actually part of your roster, actively part of your roster. So, do you feel like you really need to make something happen with this just because the opportunities don't come along like that very often?
I don't know about have to, but I think it's a unique piece. There's not many of them around the league, so you get to be in conversations that you typically aren't. And so, yeah, I thought back to, last year's deadline. It was much more complex and complicated because everything going on. Whereas this year's it's a bit more streamlined in the sense you kind of know what the major deal is. You know what you can add to it. Sure, there's some bigger deals or smaller deals, but it does make it a little bit simpler to kind of examine the team and realize that, you're not moving a major rotational piece that's currently on the team.
Have any of the trades that have officially or unofficially happened so far, has it kind of affected the marketplace for what you're trying to do?
You always take a look at it as far as setting the kind of market value, but I don't think any of the deals have materially changed that. I think the deals that have happened is kind of what the league expected to happen out of those deals. And so, 24 hours later here and 12 hours from the deal, I guess this morning, I don't feel like the value proposition has changed for many teams. They're still interested in the deals, or they're still not interested in it.
Thanks, Bobby.
Yeah.
And next we have Kelsey from Raptors Republic.
Hi, Mr. Webster. I'm just wondering if you're not able to move Goran Dragic's contract, and because of the salary cap and upcoming contracts, have you looked towards the G League and the 905 specifically to add pieces to the roster?
Hi, Kelsey. Yeah, we always do. It's an area we scout heavily. I think we had the benefit, during COVID to bring in a few of those players that we were looking at. I think, we're also cognizant that typically those players are maybe 1 or 2 years away as opposed to helping us for this run. So we'll have that market to look at. We'll obviously have the buyout market to look at pre-March 1. But yeah, the G League has obviously given us a lot of good players in development. So it's an area we definitely analyze.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And next we have Vivek from Raptors.com.
Hey, Bobby. With regards to, being behind schedule, right on schedule, ahead of schedule, I think with Scotty Barnes, most people expected the energy, the defense, and the offense was more of a question mark. Has that been a surprise to you at all? And as far as where he's at overall, how much has that shaped things for you around this time?
Obviously incredibly pleased with where Scotty is now. Doesn't mean he has a lot of room to grow. I think that for me, at least, and having a player, we haven't had a top 5 pick, I think, since we've been here. The fun thing, at least for me to watch with him is, he kind of grows by the week, and typically, you don't see that with many players. And so to watch him, in many ways kind of develop, even from game to game, I think that's fun. And so that's been kind of one of the, not necessarily unexpected, but things we haven't seen here. So I think that's been fun for us to watch. Obviously, he has his kind of plateaus and others, but I think just from a game to game, week to week, month to month, just think where he was at Summer League, think where he was in training camp, think where he was last month. And that's really exciting for us.
Thanks, Bobby.
And next we have Aaron Rose from SI.com.
Hey, Bobby. Thanks for taking the time. To what extent has the pandemic and last year's situation, and obviously not having a ton of fans in there this year, has that impacted the team's ability financially to do things either at the deadline or into the summer?
No, I haven't had, any of those conversations in a limiting way. Business as usual for us. And obviously huge thanks to our ownership. They're not, obviously it's tough for them not to have fans in the arena, but I think they see the big picture. They want us to be competitive. And so, zero interruptions, zero really even conversations on it.
Awesome. And how difficult is it? You mentioned sort of it's tough to make a big trade, but how difficult is it to do that and not disrupt the good vibes, to make sure that the piece you're bringing in, if you do make a move, isn't going to disrupt things and change the impact of what these guys have going right now? Is that something you'd rather do in the offseason if you're going to make a big move at any point?
That's a good question. We made big deals during in season and during the off season, and almost regardless, there's going to be an adjustment. And I think no matter the style of play, how flexible it is, we saw it when we brought in Serge or Mark or any of these players. There's going to be an adjustment period. So I think because of that, we can kind of go in eyes wide open as far as this may look great on paper. This may look great in all the conversations about who the player is. Well, there's just going to be it's going to take time to work it together. No different than it's taken, 30, 40 games of this team to kind of figure it out. So I think we go in understanding there's not a, there's not a perfect player or a perfect match. And so I think that's been helpful for us over the years as a group to understand what that looks like.
Thanks, Bobby.
And next we have William Liu from Sportsnet.
Hey, Bobby. I wanted to ask you about Chris Boucher's turnaround this season. Obviously, he's an impending free agent. What have you made of his turnaround, first off? And also, what are some of your thoughts, obviously, with him being a pending unrestricted free agent?
Yes, I think, we all follow Chris closely. We've all seen him. And I think what stands out to me is just the level of consistency, right? We've seen this at times, and we've seen it, for pretty good stretches, but I'm not sure we've seen it at this high of a level for this long. And so that's really, exciting for us. And I'm sure it's, even more rewarding for him, kind of considering his journey. We talk daily with Chris. He's in a really good place. As far as the future, obviously we'll get there, but, we love Chris. We know obviously as a Canadian, he loves being here. And we look forward to those.
And I also want to ask you about Precious Achiuwa as well. You guys acquired him in the offseason. What have you made so far of his first half of a season with the Raptors so far in terms of his long-term outlook and sort of even the things that he's shown just in the short time so far with the team?
Yeah, he's a good example, I think, of what maybe Aaron was bringing up when you trade for a guy and there's just going to be adjustments, right? He came into the league, he played with one organization, he comes to us even in the offseason and has time, but it does take time for him to understand what we're asking of him. Where is he going to be effective? What does he want to do with his career? And so I think that's what we're starting to see with Precious is he has the ability to do some of the things he wants to grow and develop on, but he's also kind of fitting into how we're playing. And so I think that's what we want to see. And by no means is he, a finished product. And I think that's the exciting part is if he can continue on this kind of growth curve, I think we all see, how special of a player he can be.
Thanks, Bobby.
Two more here for you, Bobby. We have Oren from Yahoo Sports Canada first.
Hey, Bobby, thanks for taking the time. In past windows where you guys have had opportunities to add talent, you guys have been, it seems, hesitant to take on long-term money. You've spoken about prioritizing flexibility in the off seasons. Given the cap situation now and the players you have in your roster now, are you guys more amenable to take on money beyond this season in a potential trade? And if so, for how many years could that be on the table?
Yeah, it's something we've done, since we've been here is until we're kind of sure of the team, we want to keep that flexibility open and not commit. But I think what you're kind of alluding to is next season where we do have some, flexibility to take on money. And so, yeah, those are exactly the type of deals we're looking at. Obviously having, most of the core under contract here, it helps us there, but we definitely have the ability next year and even beyond. I think, you don't want to play the game of, game planning out too many years in ahead because a lot of things can change in the interim. But definitely we do have some flexibility over the next year or two.
All right. Thanks, Bobby.
And now we have Adam from the Daily Hive.
Hey, Bobby. At the trade deadline, a lot of times, or just in general, when transactions happen, people talk about a player needing a change of scenery. When you do get in a player like that who comes into your organization after the trade happens, what are the sort of things you or your staff have to do on a daily basis to make them feel comfortable in a new environment?
Yeah, so for one, obviously, is just coming to a new country. There's just some logistics. So, where do you want to live? What kind of car? Do you need a bank account? There's just some very basics. And I think sometimes people overlook it because until those are kind of taken care of, I think that type of instability can affect you on the court. And so we have a whole group there that takes care of kind of the wellness and adjustment to a new city and a new organization. And then, it's pretty simple, but you want them to get to know people within the organization, not just maybe the coaches and the medical staff. You'd like to get a feel for who we are as an organization. And then you can kind of really start to drill in on the basketball and who they are, what their skill set is. Obviously we have, scouts who've been scouting players for a while. So we want them to be able to convey some information to the coaching staff. The coaching staff understands, where they may find the player best, on the court. Medical is a huge piece of it. So if a player is coming from a different team, you want to take a look at their, medical history and get a sense of any pre-existing conditions or whatnot that you'd have to take care of. So it's, it's kind of full, holistic look at the player as a person and basketball player.
All right. Thank you.
And last one here for you, Bobby. We have Amit from Yahoo Sports Canada.
Hey, Bobby, thanks for doing this. Much appreciated. I just want to ask you about Gary Trent Jr. and how his role has kind of evolved over the course of this season. Was this something that you expected to see? Has this should have been kind of a surprise in any ways?
Yeah, I think whenever you make deals, you always, think of them in the brightest light. But I think with Gary, what we've all seen and, a lot of this goes to his credit is the talks we had over the course of last season and into this summer about, becoming a two-way player. He really embraced it. And I think it's what, we know is really valuable in the NBA. But I think for him to really take that in, we know he had the ability to internalize it and to come out and play with, some joy and passion and whatnot that we're seeing is, it's also fun to watch.
Okay, thank you.